Have you ever heard of the Concorde Air France Flight 4590 accident that claimed more than 100 lives? You see, the Concorde, a supersonic passenger jet, was one of aviation's greatest engineering feats. It could travel from New York to Paris in under 3.5 hours, nearly twice the speed of sound. However, despite its technological prowess, the Concorde's history is also marked by a tragic accident that led to its retirement from service. This story focuses on the events of the Concorde crash on July 25, 2000, which ultimately caused the aircraft's demise. The Concorde was a joint venture between Britain's British Airways and France's Air France, developed by the British Aircraft Corporation and Aerospatiale. Its purpose was to revolutionize air travel by dramatically reducing flight times. The aircraft could fly at speeds over Mach 2, roughly 1,354 miles per hour, to the 180 kilometers per hour, and cruise at altitudes above 60,000 feet. For over 27 years, the Concorde was a symbol of cutting-edge aviation technology, prized by passengers who could afford its premium ticket prices. Despite its fame, the Concorde was not a commercially successful aircraft for various reasons, including high operating costs, noise restrictions, and its limited seating capacity, which made it expensive to operate. However, the Concorde remained operational for British Airways and Air France until the early 2000s, when a disaster occurred during a routine flight that would forever change its legacy. On July 25, 2000, Air France Flight 4590, a Concorde, took off from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, bound for New York City. It was the final leg of its journey, and everything seemed to be proceeding normally. The flight, commanded by Captain Christian Marty, had a crew of 4, 2 pilots and 2 flight engineers. On board were 100 passengers, most of whom were German tourists, as well as 4 crew members. The weather was clear, with no significant challenges expected during the flight. Flight 4590 was scheduled to leave at 4:30 p.m., and as the aircraft accelerated down the runway, it reached a speed of about 330 knots, 600 kilometers per hour. The Concorde's engines roared with the unmistakable power that had made it famous. However, a few seconds after takeoff, things went horribly wrong. The aircraft hit a metal strip that had fallen off a Continental Airlines DC-10, which had taken off minutes earlier. This metal strip, often referred to as a titanium strip, was lying on the runway. The Concorde struck it, and the resulting damage was catastrophic. Upon hitting the metal strip, one of the Concorde's tires burst. Debris from the tire struck the underside of the aircraft, rupturing the fuel tanks located in the wing. This caused a massive fire to break out in the wing area. In a supersonic jet like the Concorde, fires were a serious concern due to the high speeds at which it traveled and the immense amount of fuel it carried. The fire spread rapidly, and despite the crew's immediate response to the emergency, the damage was too great to prevent a tragedy. The aircraft was already airborne, and with the fire continuing to spread in the wing, the crew struggled to maintain control. The loss of thrust from the damaged engines, combined with the fire, made it almost impossible for the pilots to regain control. As Flight 4590 struggled to stay aloft, the pilots tried to use all their training and experience to stabilize the plane. The flight crew knew the aircraft's engines were losing power due to the fire, and with the added complication of the damaged wing, they faced a daunting task. At this point, the aircraft had already reached an altitude of about 200 feet. As the plane continued to climb, it became clear that the fire was not something that could be contained. As the aircraft lost more and more power, the situation rapidly deteriorated. Witnesses on the ground observed flames coming from the rear of the aircraft. The jet began to lose altitude as it flew over the Gonesse region, north of Paris. As it descended, the pilots made several attempts to turn the aircraft back toward the airport for an emergency landing, but the aircraft was too far gone by this point. Within just minutes of takeoff, the aircraft's trajectory had shifted dramatically. The flight, which had started as a regular commercial operation, was now heading toward a catastrophic end. As the Concorde began to descend rapidly, the pilots were unable to regain control. The fire in the wing and the loss of engine power meant the aircraft was descending too quickly to make a controlled landing. As the aircraft crashed to the ground, it slammed into a hotel in Guinness, killing all 109 people aboard and 4 people on the ground. The massive fire that followed the crash completely destroyed the aircraft and the hotel, making the event even more tragic. The cause of the crash was initially uncertain, but the French investigation into the incident revealed several key factors that contributed to the disaster. The metal strip, which had been left on the runway by the Continental Airlines DC-10, was determined to be the initial catalyst for the tragedy. It had fallen off the DC-10 during its takeoff, and while it might not have caused a problem on a normal flight, the Concorde, with its tires under more pressure due to its higher speed, was unable to avoid it. The Concorde's tire burst upon impact with the metal strip, and the debris punctured the fuel tanks, starting the fire. This chain of events, exacerbated by the inability of the crew to contain the fire and maintain control of the aircraft, led directly to the crash. The investigation also revealed that the Concorde's aging design contributed to the disaster. The aircraft's tires were not designed to withstand such high-speed impacts, and the fire suppression system was not sufficient to deal with the magnitude of the fire caused by the fuel leak. Additionally, there were concerns about the aircraft's maintenance, especially given that the Concorde had been in service for more than 2 decades at that time. The crash of Air France Flight 4590 led to significant scrutiny of Concorde's safety. Following the investigation, the French Civil Aviation Authority, DGAC, ordered that all Concorde aircraft be grounded until modifications could be made to improve safety. These modifications included reinforced tires, fireproof fuel tanks, and updated fire suppression systems. Although these changes were implemented, the damage to Concorde's reputation had already been done. The accident also led to legal action, with the families of the victims suing both Air France and Continental Airlines. The metal strip from the DC-10 had been a critical factor in the crash, and Continental Airlines faced criticism for failing to ensure the aircraft's safety during takeoff. The legal proceedings took several years, and in 2003, Continental Airlines reached a settlement with the families of the victims. The financial and reputational damage caused by the accident played a role in the Concorde's eventual retirement. The aircraft had already been facing financial challenges due to its high operating costs and limited passenger appeal. After the crash, and with the rising costs of maintaining the fleet, both British Airways and Air France decided to retire the Concorde fleet in 2003. The Concorde's retirement was a sad and inevitable conclusion to its history. The aircraft had been a symbol of speed and luxury, but the tragic crash in 2000 had revealed the inherent risks associated with flying at such high speeds in an aircraft that had been designed in the 1960s and 1970s. The Concorde's departure from the skies marked the end of the era of commercial supersonic flight. Despite its technological marvels, the cost of maintaining and operating such an aircraft, combined with the tragic loss of life on Flight 4590, ultimately led to its retirement. In the years since the Concorde's final flight, there have been discussions about reviving supersonic commercial aviation, but none of the new projects have reached the scale of the Concorde. Despite its tragic end, the Concorde remains a symbol of human ingenuity and the pursuit of speed. The crash of Air France Flight 4590 left a permanent mark on the aviation world. It raised serious questions about the safety of supersonic travel and the limitations of technology when it comes to operating commercial airliners. It also led to significant changes in aircraft design and safety regulations, particularly with respect to fire safety and tire integrity. In the years following the disaster, several safety enhancements were made to other aircraft, including reinforced tires, better fireproofing, and improvements to landing gear design. The crash of the Concorde also led to tighter regulations for runway debris prevention, as it was a metal strip from another aircraft that caused the initial tire burst. Though the Concorde itself may never return to the skies, the lessons learned from the tragic accident on July 25, 2000, continue to shape the future of aviation safety and technology. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment for more headline